Welcome. This lecture is intended to prepare you to use IDOT survey field codes successfully to enable automated drafting in topo surveys performed with electronic data collectors. When you have completed a topographic survey using an electronic data collector, one of the outputs that you can get is a coordinate file. And that coordinate file for every measured point will contain a point number, northing, easting, elevation, and some code or description that you have entered. The code is designed to instruct your 3D civil or survey software to draw symbols and lines and text elements in your drawing automatically. The codes that you see here don't look like anything you could readily understand. They are a numeric code system. There are other code systems that use letters. They are alpha codes. Perhaps a little more intuitive, but this particular system is designed and used by the Illinois Department of Transportation, and thus is also used by those companies that prefer to do business with the Illinois Department of Transportation. Once you get used to each system, then you find benefits for each one. But we're going to use this system for some reasons that go well beyond the scope of this discussion, but it's the one we've settled on here at Parkland. Survey field codes come in three major forms. The first major form is the point code. The point code instructs GeoPack to insert a symbol at the point where the shot is taken. Whether it's GeoPack or Civil 3D or Carlson Survey or some other vendor's software, the concept is the same. The point code instructs the software to insert a symbol at the point where the shot is taken. So, if we have a point code for a manhole, then GeoPack is going to insert a manhole symbol centered on the point calculated for that shot. A linking code describes how the individual spot shots are to be connected. For example, linking codes can determine if the shots should be connected with lines or line strings or arcs or curved strings. A classic example would simply be a series of measurements along a back of curb or some other linear element on your job site. The linking code can tell GeoPack that a series of points falls on a curve, or another series of points will simply be connected with tangent segments. A line code, in conjunction with linking codes, instructs GeoPack to, number one, place a point at every shot, so that could be some small symbol plus a point number and elevation, and then draw a line using the specified attributes to other points with the same line code. That is, GeoPack looks for all the points with the same code, and depending on their sequence, will connect them in sequence. The linking codes that we use here at Parkland are the ones used not only by GeoPack but also by the Department of Transportation here in Illinois. They are alpha codes, whereas our line and point codes are numeric codes. So we will type in BL star to begin a line, or CF star for a curved fit. We'll explain these as we go. So what I'd like to do is walk through an example that shows up in the data collection coding guide that you have received already. This is in the very tail end of that guide, and I hope by now that you have scanned through that document to make some sense of some of the basic relationships between point codes, linking codes, and line codes. So let's start out with this example. At the south end of the project, you can see point numbers that have been labeled here, and it appears that the rodman walked from our right to the left here, taking a series of shots almost in a cross-section fashion across this site. When we're starting the survey, we have to begin several lines. It's as if the rodman is deciding, I want to start a line here on the map. Therefore, at the very first point, when he takes the shot, he instructs the instrument man to code into the data collector BL star 292. BL star stands for begin a line. 292 is the IDOT survey field code for sidewalk edge. So we're beginning a line representing an edge of sidewalk. Well, I have another edge of sidewalk at point 2, and so that Geopack can tell these first two lines apart, we'll modify the edge of sidewalk code, so it is now BL star 2921. And we can keep adding digits or incrementing the digits on the end of this basic 292 code to distinguish multiple lines. Our third shot is a back of curb line. We're beginning a line of code 502, which is a back of curb. Now the next point is a little more complicated because we want to do two things. We want to place a manhole symbol and we want to begin a storm sewer line. So I'm going to begin the storm sewer line with a code 336, and then I'm going to insert a space. I don't have to, but it makes it a little easier to read. I insert a space, and I'm placing a point code 351. The reason I know it's a point code is my IDOT survey field codes guide indicates that this is not a code that is used to connect a series of points with lines. It is intended to be a point code. Then I would really like to have on the drawing the number 451 show up on the drawing when the draftsman opens it for the first time. So therefore, I put in a dash or a minus sign to indicate that I'm going to place a comment that will show on the drawing. Why is this 451 significant? Well, it's fairly common in professional practice that we will keep track of all the manholes and inlets and any other underground structures on the site. We will give them some inventory number, and corresponding with that inventory number in our field notes or our documentation will be either notes in a field book or some worksheet that indicates the measurements we take when we open the manhole and measure the pipes and the locations and depths of the elements inside that manhole. That's an important part of our design work, and we need to be able to catalog not only where the point is on the drawing, but tie that point on the drawing with a number to some element in our field notes and field files. For point 4, we've done a couple of operations. 1, we started a line. 2, we placed a symbol, a point type symbol. And you could call it 2.5 or 3, we have added a code, or a note, the 451 note that will show on the drawing. This is about all that Geopack will cooperate with on one particular code. Really, two things, 2 line codes or a line code and a point code, or perhaps 2 point codes in one for one point is about all it will cooperate with. So if I need to have more things than that going on at one point, I may have to take 2 shots there just so I can fit the codes in the file. So we'll show you some examples of that in a little while. Back to number 5. We are beginning a back of curb line, 5021, and number 6 and number 7 we're beginning 2 more sidewalk lines. Well, if I move forward, if point 7 was a sidewalk line, point 8 is a point on the same sidewalk line. So what Geopack will now do is connect a line from point 8 back to point 7 as a sidewalk line. it does that because it sees common codes between 7 and 8. Point 9 is a line that I started just before the line of point 7 and point 8. So GeoPack will connect a line back from point 9 to the previous occurrence of the 2922 code. Now at point 10, there are two things going on. I want to connect the sidewalk line from point 10 to point 9. Therefore, you see a 2922 code in there. And then I want to connect point 10 also to the previous occurrence of this back of curb line. Now, it doesn't really matter whether I put 5021 first or 2922 first. GeoPack sees those and then works backward to the previous occurrence of those codes. Doesn't matter which one goes first. All right, so if I cross the street, it might be tempting to get point 12 first, but I need point 11 next, and that is the next point on my edge of sidewalk line labeled 2921. So it draws a line from 11 back to the previous occurrence of 2921, and then I can go over and pick up point 12. 12 is very much like point 10 in that I'm connecting the line from point 12 back to point 11 for the sidewalk line, and I'm connecting point 12 with a back of curb line back to the previous occurrence of the 502 back of curb shot. Then I wander back over and I'm going to take a shot at point 13 and continue or make the second point on my original 292 edge of sidewalk line. Point 14 is an important point because not only is it a continuation of my sidewalk line, but this is the point of curvature, in this case, for my back of curb. You see, point 14, point 15, and point 17 will be used to define a circular arc that is tangent to the two back of curb tangents on either side of this curve. So I need to show that point 14 is a continuation of the 2921 line, and it is the point of curvature for that back of curb. 15 then is going to be a point on that arc, and once I've established the PC point, then the next occurrence of that code needs to have just the numeric code. 16, once again, is my edge of sidewalk, 2921, and then I jump over to 17. Here I'm continuing that edge of sidewalk, and I am establishing the point of tangency for the back of curb line. So when we do a circular curve like this that is tangent to the lines before and after it, then I need to have a PC with the line code, followed by one occurrence of that line code, and then the PT of that line code. And that's what I have here. Along the way, notice that 2921 is woven in there. Think for a moment about the consequences if I had skipped directly from 14 to 17. Think of what the sidewalk line would look like. Probably it would zigzag back and forth and not give me the nice square corners like you see going from 14 to 16 to 17. Likewise, if I had shot point 12 before point 11, the sidewalk lines would not go where I want them to. So it's very important that the rodman be conscious of the sequence in which the software prefers to draw the lines. Okay, let's continue. from point 18. Now we're continuing with the back of the curb and the edge of sidewalk line. I want you to notice something here. From 12 to 14 and from 17 to 18, we actually drew two lines right over the top of each other. One line was the edge of sidewalk, and the other was the back of curb. Being right over the top of each other certainly doesn't hurt anything, and it's simpler than beginning and or ending and beginning lines again. So that's a time-saving method that I have used to keep myself from going crazy about did I end this line, or do I need to begin it again? Have I started it? Have I stopped it? I just keep it going, and then leave that up to our drafting technicians to clean up if they need to. Well, then, as you can see, the sequence goes, I'm continuing my edge of sidewalk line at 19, at 20, continuing my original line, and it's going to stop here, but it won't know to stop until I restart it in a little while. 21 is also a continuation. 22 is a back of curb line. 23, I am shooting as a flow line, and it's a point shot. Simply put, if the back of curb is at the top of the curb on the back side, that is the grassy side of the curb, then the flow line is at the face of the curb at the bottom in, say, a gutter or where pavement meets the face of that curb. That's where the water would flow against the curb, the flow line. Then it's very common that we take a shot on the pavement at the crown or center line. And the code in this case, 666, is standard code for pavement. 793, once again, is a flow line shot. And this is significant. When we begin a line again, it effectively cuts it off at the previous occurrence. So the previous occurrence of 502 was at 22. I could have used an end line code at 22. However, Geopack will interpret a begin line as an interruption of a line. So it looks and says, all right, the previous occurrence of line 502 was at 22. I am starting it, or effectively restarting it, at 26. Therefore, it gets cut off at the last occurrence. So at 22 is the end of line 502, and then I can restart line 502 afresh at 26. 26 and 22 don't get connected with a line. As I continue on from 26, point 27 is on that back of curb. In fact, it's a PC of that back of curb. And I'm going to jump over and pick up a sign. This is a traffic sign, a code 673. This is a point type code. It is not designed to connect dots in a sequence. And then, let's see, let's skip over here on this house. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 all define corners of this house. But notice I didn't shoot in the back corner. This is a classic case where my electronic field notes may not be sufficient to show all the things I need on the drawing. Depending on how the design affects this house, maybe only showing the near face is good enough. Or perhaps I need to get out my field book and sketch this house and show on my sketch these point numbers, and then get out a tape and tape all the way around the house, showing the two sides in this case that I was not able to measure the corners of. And thus, the drafting technicians in the office could take my written field notes and use those to supplement the measurements I've taken with the data collector in the field. Continuing on then, point 34 and 35 fall out in the middle of the intersection. Recall that we began at point 4, our original storm sewer line. Well, that storm sewer line is continuing here, and when we continue a line, we're simply we don't have to have a begin line code or a continuation code. We're simply saying, okay, 336, that's a line code. That is a continuation of the storm sewer line. And I'm not going to end that right now, because one of the two branches that I see going left or right will be a continuation of this line as well. I believe I've got a little typo here where I have 352. That should really say 351. I believe that is my my storm sewer manhole code, and I probably got to thinking ahead a little bit, thinking about that 452. But yes, indeed, that should be a 351 instead of a 352. And then, like I did before, I'm putting in a dash or a minus to indicate that that is structure number 452 that I want to show on the CAD drawing. I have another code that I want to start there, and since I've already got two major elements in shot 34, I'm going to take another shot at the very same place and code it the beginning of line 3361. 336 is my basic code for a storm line. My line heading over toward inlet 454 over there is going to be that line 3361. Well, if I'm the rodman and I'm calling codes to my instrumentman, then I'll tell him before he even takes the shot, okay, I'm going to give you two shots here, two different sets of codes. So the code for the first shot is 336 space 352 dash 452. And go ahead and tell me when you got the shot done. Okay, they record the shot, get the codes in, and they say, okay, ready for the second shot. I don't even move the rod at this point. I'm staying in the same spot. Say, okay, second code is BL star 3361, and he takes the shot and records that. So what I'll have is 2 points in the same place in the drawing, but two different codes. The reason for the two different sets of codes is I have that many operations going on at that one spot. Okay, 36. We're doing a couple things here as well. This is the end of my storm sewer line 336, and then 339 is a standard inlet. It's a point code, and I want number 453 to show on the drawing right next to that inlet. 37 is the back of curb shot between the PC and the PT of the curb. The location of this shot is typically going to be at the back of curb, and that will give the insertion point of my inlet symbol to line up with the back of curb itself. So both 36 and 37 are taken at the same spot. 38 is the point of tangency, or the PT, of my back of curb line, and 39 is the far end of that curb. Well, just like we said before, if I move across the road and restart the 502 line, then it's going to sever that line at 39, not connect it to 40, and then begin that line anew. So here we continue. 41, I think you can see, is the PC of that line. 42 is the point on the arc between the PC and the PT. And 43, now notice here, this is the continuation of the line we started at 35 there at the manhole. Well, it's 3361 is that line code. We're also placing another standard inlet. That's a 339. And I want the number 454 to be on the drawing right next to that symbol when the CAD draftsman opens it up. Then 44 is the PT of the 502 back of curb line. 45 is the end of that. And now I'm going to jump back over to 46. Now 46 was not 502, that's 502.1. So let's see what that looks like. Here, I am continuing my edge of sidewalk line, and I'm starting the point of curvature for line 5021. 47 is the point on the arc between the PC and the PT. 48 is edge sidewalk. 49 is, again, very much like 46, except it's at the PT. Continuing on, 50, you can see, if you think about this, we have coded this so we've got two lines being drawn from 49 to 50, and one is right over the top of the other. We have the 2922, which is edge of sidewalk, and we also have the back of curb line. 51, edge of sidewalk. 52, I'm going to terminate the last or the fourth sidewalk line I created. 53, I'm ending the third sidewalk line I created. And 54, I am ending my second back of curb line. And then I had a few other things, wandered around the site and picked up number 55 is a tree. And using a separate distance and angle shot in our data collection routine, I can get a good estimate of the center of that tree trunk. Now, the codes for trees, 405 is a deciduous tree. I'm going to follow that with a note indicating the inches diameter of this tree. I could even, right after the 16, I could type in a species if I prefer. 56 doesn't show on this image, but it is a pine tree, a 9-inch evergreen. And so a 405 is a deciduous, 406 is an evergreen tree. And then back to 57, I've got a 6-inch tree here. And then 58, I can create some kind of note if I've got something really strange that I can't necessarily describe with a shot or a set of shots. Sometimes you just have to snap a picture or make a sketch in your field book with some kind of narrative as what's going on. So in this case, what I'm trying to tell the draftsman is, hey, take a look in the field notes. I've got something there for you that just doesn't show up on electronic data really well. And so he looks in the field book and finds out that I've left him this note. Hey, there's a 12-inch diameter sinkhole at the surface. Looks like something's washing out down there. And I probed down in that thing with a 12-foot rod and couldn't find the bottom of the hole. So there is something strange going on here that is noteworthy. It's a subsurface condition that we have surface evidence of. It's noteworthy for the survey because it may affect design and construction. We're using different types of codes to be able to show a variety of things in the drawing. Really what we're talking about is a concept that's been known in the surveying world as field to finish. See, we've used codes in the field to speed the process to the finished product. This is just a small little example of some student work from a few years ago. Across the bottom you can see a yellow line which indicates a back of curb, and then the dashed line that curves up around this tree in the middle of the screen is a gravel path. In two places to the right of the tree you can see inlets. Now I think you can understand the inlet along the back of curb is probably oriented with the back of curb, but initially as CAD inserted the symbol hasn't yet been rotated to match the curb. That's some of the cleanup work that our CAD draftsmen need to do. But is it in the right place? Yes, it's in the right place. The intent of this, again, was to give you a little feel for how we do coding for topographic surveys using data collectors. I hope you find this useful, and this will be worth coming back to from time to time to get some refresher. Thanks for your attention.